Hi, everybody. This is David P. France, and I'm coming to you from Basel, Switzerland. Before we get this interview started, I would like everyone out there who watches our video to share the videos, like the videos, subscribe to our YouTube and BitChute channel. This is David P. France TV. We are a platform for creators and creative people, artists and inventors, small business owners, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and the like. So today I have someone who, very interesting young lady I want to introduce you guys to. Her name is Briana Stuart. And Briana Stuart, you're going to tell us more about what you're up to, but she's from Detroit, everybody. So all the people that are out there that I know from way back from Detroit, you know, give her a what's up after the interview post, little comments that would always help. And Briana is currently based in Brussels, Belgium. And she's a dancer, and she is the creator of creativelivingfordancers.com, or Creative Living for Dancers, which is on the website, right? So, you know, you and I had an earlier conversation, and I just wanted to start where we began then. Well, it was a couple of months ago, but now we are here in the present. Tell us your story. Tell us how you became involved in dance, and then how you ended up moving to Brussels. I think that's a good start.
Yeah, that's a heavy question. I'll try to keep it short because as you can imagine, there's a lot of steps. So typical dancer story, my mom put me in dance classes, couldn't take me out of the studio. I guess that's kind of earlier part of my life. Then I just kept dancing through middle school and high school. And then once I went to school, I ended up being a dance major at the University of Michigan, which actually was kind of a mistake. In a sense that I didn't know if I wanted to really do dance professionally, but I ended up applying for the University of Michigan, and I applied for their business school. And when you apply for that school, you have to apply to a secondary school. And I was like, let's just put dance. So I didn't get into the B school, but I got into SMTD, the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. So then I was like, all right, let's just try this thing. I've been doing it all my life. Why not? I was in like my first week at Michigan in the dance department. And after that first week, I was like, yeah, I could do this all day. Yeah, that's fine. So then I just stuck with it. Then I graduated from Michigan. I ended up moving to DC, and I actually did an arts internship at an arts organization. And then I transitioned into a full-time company for a couple seasons. Then I left the company and did a 6-month Euro trip to discover dance around the world. While I was traveling, I discovered this small country called Belgium, and fell in love with the capital, which is Brussels. And something along my trip just kept bringing me back to the city. And then when I finally went back to the States, because I kind of ran out of money, honestly, after 6 months, the question that I asked myself was, okay, you sold all your stuff to travel. I was like, I left, the company I was with. I was like, what do you want to do? Like, where do you want to be? And the biggest question that popped into my head was, well, where was I happiest last, actually? And then I said, Brussels. And then from there, just clarity kind of just came across my eyes. And I started applying for my visa. And now it's almost been 4 years since I've moved to Brussels, Belgium. Long story short.
There's a lot there. So let's go back to University of Michigan. Why did you think it was a mistake initially?
Well, I use the word mistake. When I said the word mistake, I realized that was kind of an interesting choice of words. Only because it just wasn't my original intention, basically. I didn't intend to actually be a dance major at the University of Michigan. And this is just me being very honest. Upon graduating from high school, I think a lot of the stereotypes and narratives of what it means to be a dancer were kind of like subconsciously, they were kind of in there from people's comments and what people would say, it's going to be really hard. I was just like, okay, well, maybe I'll just try something like in business. It was just kind of one of those, maybe I'll just, yeah, okay, sure, maybe advertising, like maybe something along those lines. I like to, talk with people and like, I don't know, I just came up with all these different reasons. But then when I applied, I was like, oh, well, this is their requirement. You have to do a fallback. And I was like, well, I don't know business, which I didn't really know. I was like, well, I know dance. That could be interesting, but I'm really going for business. So in a way, I call it a mistake because my intention was not there. But I was redirected is actually how I like to call it. It was a strong redirection, but definitely for the right reason, because this is what I meant to do, and I know that now.
Yeah. And this short stint or in Washington, D.C., I mean, what was the choice there? Did you say, okay, I'll move to Washington, or what got you to Washington,
Yeah.
D.C.?
So what's funny is, and as you know this, a lot of dancers, when they graduate from the conservatories and university, everyone's like, I'm gonna go to New York. Let's just hightail it to New York. Let's audition. Let's do the whole New York grind, all the things. I didn't like New York. I didn't want to live there. I was just very honest with myself. I was like, I don't want to do that. I just don't do that. But then there was also a part of me that was interested in learning a little bit more about the field of dance. So not just what it needs to be on stage, but the people behind the scenes that make it happen. So upon graduation, I was like, maybe I'll do like an internship, something kind of transitional to kind of just give me more experience, kind of in another sense. And that's when I found this internship place in Washington, D.C. And I was doing, what did I do? Individual giving and grant writing. I had
Okay.
actually had a knack for writing to get money because I actually ended up getting a full ride to the University of Michigan. I applied to so many scholarships. I was writing my life away. Give me money to go to school. Give me money to go to school. So by the time I was looking to graduate, I realized I think I have a knack for writing and selling myself more or less. And maybe I can go into grant writing. It was just an idea. So then I was like, oh, let's just do that. And then we'll see what happens in Washington, D.C. And D.C. is so close to New York that I was like, if I change my mind, I could always just take the bus back and forth. Like it just leaves a lot of different options. And happen chance that same weekend, there was an audition for a company called Step Africa. Did the audition for Step Africa that same weekend, started my internship that Monday. 4 or 5 months later, I got Step Africa and transitioned out of the internship into Step Africa for 2 seasons. So it's interesting that you pinpoint this particular part of my life because everything was very like redirection. That was literally the moment of my life where something was like, oh, you thought you wanted to do this? Ha! No. We're gonna go ahead and redirect you. But things were just lined up. If they talk about the alignment of the stars, the moment between graduating from high school and like college was like a golden time for that, where everything was just getting set up. So
And now you're set up once again in Brussels, right? So you just informed me before we started the interview that you have a new apartment. So like for people that don't necessarily know how this works, right? Because if in other words, when I was younger, I wanted to move to Italy. I didn't necessarily think that I was going to. Because I didn't know, I didn't do anything, right? So for the people who don't know what the process is, can you tell us how does an American, right, make the jump to live in a European country? I mean, there's what is the process there? I mean, I think that's I think it's one of the things that people are afraid of when they think about moving and how they're going to make a living.
When you say how, do you mean like visa wise, like very technical, like logistics?
Give us the technical, and then give us your thought process, right? That'll be the second thing. So I say, okay, technically this is what I had to do, right? And then you say, thought wise, this is what I did, right? And so that people can see the two different.
Okay, that makes sense. So technically, and for those that are tuning in, every country has a certain amount of visas, active visas for people that want to live there. That could be you just married someone that just means maybe you married someone from that country. That could be that there's a company that's in that country and they sponsor a visa for you. So for those that are unfamiliar, there are all types of visas around the world, if you're curious. For me as a dancer, I looked into what is called a self-employment visa. So in America, for example, when I do dance work, we're self-employed, but we don't have to start our own business to do that. We have a 1099, that's kind of how it works. When it comes to moving to a different country, because I'm a foreigner, I have to establish myself as a self-employed, in my case, artist. And then I have to pretty much set up a business as a sole proprietor. And in doing that, my visa application was pretty much my entire life, my entire artistic career, pay stubs, recommendation letters. I pretty much had to establish myself as this entity that is able to create income. That's very important. Create income, someone that provides a service or something that's very unique and will contribute to the environment or whatever I'm trying to get into in that particular country. And it's in really honing into what makes me unique, that really makes a difference in really establishing what you can offer to others. So once I put in my application, I waited for 3 months and they did an official yes. And because I have a work visa and the work that I do requires me to live in the country longer, it gives me a temporary residential visa as well. Because so there technically I have two, but they kind of go hand in hand. So that's as technical as I can get without getting too nitty gritty. I think it's just finding a visa and then just like really trying to put as much as you can to, be detailed in whatever you would like to do in that country. Thought process wise, when I talked about why I moved, the whole like, where was I happiest? I think I was at a moment in my life where I knew I was looking for something, but I didn't quite know what it was. But it wasn't just move to Brussels, I'm gonna say Belgium, move to Belgium because there's a lot of dance. To me, that was very one-sided. I wanted to move somewhere that had a sense of like wholeness, right? I could be a dancer, but then I could have an amazing lifestyle. So there are tons of expats here. So socially, there's a group here that I can connect with, for example. Or in Brussels, if anyone has been here, it's like a really small city, but it's kind of like a village too. So it can be really fast sometimes. Then if you go a little further on the outskirts, you can be in the countryside like in no time. So I felt like this particular city has a good balance in work life and socially and just all of these things that I felt that I could really build a life. And that's, I think, the most important part of my thought process is building a life for myself. Because I've met people here that were like, you're this American in Belgium? Like, that's so weird. Like, this country is not interesting. Why would you be here? There are other places that are more interesting. America is like so much more exciting. And I was like, I didn't move to a country for the excitement, Of course, there's things that I enjoy, but I moved here to really feel balance and calmness and feel like that I can grow and thrive in different ways, not just dance. So ever since then, I've really, if I allow, of course, this to happen, I've really seen how Brussels has had a positive effect on me as a person and what's important in balancing work and social life. And I'm bringing that up a lot because as an American, we work a lot. Like, I realize that whole like pull yourself up and just like go, 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 that capitalist mindset, it worked so hard. And now I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, I don't need to work that hard anymore. Yes, I will always be ambitious, but there's beautiful sunshine right here coming into my apartment that I can sit on my balcony and enjoy. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's other things that I've noticed about, European country, culture as well that has kind of seeped into like, just relax.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. I think it's very, very interesting because not that many people are making that kind of decision, right? And you seem to be very not assured, but you're very convinced, right? Like, and so how quickly did you get to having this sort of sensibility? I mean, you did a European travel, and we're going to get to your project, but I'm interested in your process. So you came to Europe, you went on a tour. What countries did you visit? What cities, and how did you feel about each one? And then after, how did you get to the decision, Brussels versus Rome, or Brussels versus Paris, or Brussels, you understand what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So when I did my first Euro trip, I hit about, God, I always forget the number, 12 countries, something like that. So I was more on the Western side. I spent a lot of time in London. I actually thought I was gonna move there because I was like, it's English speaking, it's kind of America-like, it'll be great. After like a month or two, I was like, yeah, no. I was like, yeah, no. It was just, to me, it's just like a British New York. It's just very like fast-paced. People don't look at each other, say hi, go, go, go. It was still that go, go, go that I was, I guess, in a way trying to get away from. So I spent a lot of time there. I ended up in Berlin for a bit of time because it's a great dance scene there. I did visit Rome and Italy actually, which was cool. Where else did I go? I was in Cyprus. I hit Hong Kong actually for a second. I hit the Netherlands. I hit France. I hit Ireland. I hit so many places. And I think the best way I can actually explain about why Brussels pulled me is that it wasn't my mind that convinced me. It was my intuition, honestly. I remember when I first got off the plane from Brussels and I was getting on the Schumann bus to go to pretty much kind of more or less the center of the city. And like, I took one step off that bus and it was just like, it almost felt like from that step, there was just this like wave that went through my body. And I was like, yo, there is something about this city. I was like, But I say the interesting part about bouncing between all these countries is that something in Brussels kept bringing me back. Because every time I come back, I meet new dancers and meet other people. I met a Belgian in London, for example. You should come to Brussels. Come back to Brussels. There's this thing. Come back. There's this other thing. There's this other thing. And something just kept like bringing me back. Here. So every time I came back, I all of a sudden knew where to get my hair products, where to take dance class, all the art centers that were around me, all the theaters. Like I felt like I was to live here before it even really happened, and already building my community of people that I knew as well. So in the midst of intuitive feeling, as well as just all these moments of like being magnetically drawn back, it just kind of was like, I don't know, I guess something in me just started to convince myself, I guess, that it was the decision, that this is just there's something about this city. Mind you, I don't want to, I want to mention the fact that it's been struggles. My first, I say, year or two in this city, there was one moment where I literally was just like, maybe Belgium doesn't want me here, because it just felt like things were going against me. I was like, I feel like I'm in love with this city, but something doesn't want me here. So I had to get out of my way a lot. I had to just, Briana, it's almost like I describe my relationship with Belgium like a marriage. Like I officially said we're engaged right now because I'm not a citizen yet, and I do plan to go for the the citizenship. But I was just like, you either take the flaws, love it, and move through it, or you divorce and break up. You know what I'm saying? So there's a moment where I was just like, and then I was like, dude, I love you so much.
Well, look, just to draw this point in though, I mean, the fact that you're moving to another culture, another language, I mean, this is a huge jump. This is what, when you started telling me a story, and as I'm, more of it is sort of coming to the front of my mind. Again, I had similar situation, right? Where the first couple of years in Switzerland was very, but I did feel a comfort, or a shock first. It was a shock, but then there was a comfort. So now I feel like, Basel is my home, right? I really do. And people say, why don't you move to Zurich? I'm like, wow, because Zurich is bigger and it's got, you know what I mean, more. But I've been in Basel for a long time. So it's, so I mean, I feel you 150, 60%. But tell us about your organization, what you're creating, and what your intention is with regard to the creation of the project.
Yes. So creative living for dancers, I say, is broken out into two parts. This is typically how I describe it. There is one side that talks about the professional development aspect, the idea of empowering dancers, specifically freelance dancers, to really take a hold of their career and to create the life that they would like to live creatively, hence creative living for dancers. I find that dancers are, as you know, amazing people, amazingly creative, have amazing ideas, like really innovative, but there seems to be a disconnect between this amazing creativity and their own lives and how they approach certain things. So in Creative for Dancers, I pretty much present new ideas and ways of thinking about what it means to be a dancer, and really rewriting the narrative and stereotype. So moving away from the struggling dancer that doesn't make enough money and all the things that people could imagine, and really trying to have each dancer based on their unique story, their unique path, their unique impact in dance, and really creating the life for them. And I say for them because there are some dancers that want to make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and there are some dancers that are good with $40,000 a year salary, doing some teaching and choreography, and it's like, but that is up for them to decide. But the fact that the stereotype has been created that's pretty much wedged dancers into one little, like, I don't think is really fair to us as artists, dancers, and as people as well. So I really try to emphasize the whole dancer. How can you approach your dance career as a whole person, and not just, I do dance all the time, I'm a dance robot, but how the other parts of our lives contribute to our careers and that they're not separate. So within Creative for Dancers, I've created some professional development videos that pretty much start to talk about these ideas in different ways, as well as a workbook that allows people to watch the videos and then kind of reflect on what they've heard me speak about. In the videos, I talk about my own personal experiences and what I've discovered, and then I encourage the dancers to do that for themselves. It's really about just planting ideas and allowing that to kind of like thrive within their minds, and then from there, they take the next steps that are right for them. On the other side, there is a Creative Living for Dancers award for dancers that are interested in creating digital dance projects. So Creative Living for Dancers is pretty much an online thing. It's all digital. And I think too, within the dance world, and as we saw with the COVID pandemic, that going digital became, well, we were forced into it But I think in dancers starting to create a digital presence, there's not like, oh shoot, I have to figure it out. There's creating a strong side of what it means to be an artist and your artistic identity in the digital sphere, so that it's something that continues to build your career and the impact that you want to create as well.
Yeah.
So if I was, I guess, break down CLD in kind of like one sentence, it's really just about empowerment and inspiration, and expansion is the word that I use a lot when it comes to CLD.
Yeah, well, I think it's fantastic. I mean, you talk about the use of video and how it became a must during pandemic, and it's always been a must, right? But now, you know, Zoom classes, practice or rehearsal rather, online,
Yep.
right?
Exactly.
That in and of itself has transformed the industry. I think also with regard to performance, when we can't all be together, we have to somehow figure out how to perform online. That's a whole nother sphere that we haven't, there's still room to grow, meaning that you can have entire performances online now and not have to really even be in the theater as part of what it is you're doing. Let's say a dancer comes to you and says, okay, I need help on growing within the dance world. What would be your recommendations? Like, what kind of recommendations would you give to a dancer just based on what is it that you have figured out from your side?
If a dancer comes to me and said that they would like to really build and expand their career, what is the first thing that I would tell them? Honestly, for me, I think the first thing I would start with is I would ask them why. Because I think every dancer has a reason, because I really want to make sure that I meet their needs, which I think would be really important. So if they go, Briana, I'm just not making enough money, or Briana, I'm just not happy with the work that I'm creating, or Briana, I just, because oftentimes it could just be that they're just not in the right city for it, or they're in the right city, but they're not utilizing the resources within their city correctly. Or instead of them trying to join other people's projects, it's about time that they created their own. If they're like, I can't leave my city, my family is there. So I think if a dancer were to come to me, I'd really try to figure out, answer these different questions, as well as learn more about them as a person. I would actually start out with them as a person before I really try to hit their life as a dancer. And I would also start with an overarching like umbrella. What impact do you want to create through dance? And it's funny because as I use the word impact a lot, I think some dancers can get caught up in performing, which is great. We love to be on stage. It's awesome. But we don't want to forget that what we do is meant to touch and connect lives in different ways, not only in the, how high you can kick your leg, or how the quality of movement that you can present, but what communities and audiences can you touch? So in thinking about impact, it would be about, it's funny because in saying this is kind of from a business mindset, is that who is your audience? Who would you like to impact through dance? And then from there, I mean, that's just a whole business plan at that point, and really breaking down what's necessary. So I would start with the whole dancer, and then I would also go with what impact they want to create. And then from there, we would break it down to be more detailed.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting, if I'd known you in 2011, things would have been much different for me, right? Because I moved, and it wasn't necessarily because I picked the city. The city sort of picked me, right? So then I had to get around. But I will tell you, I think every European city could benefit from American dancers or performers because of what you just described about how we have been brought up in our culture and how we approach business, or just how we have to do things, right? I think every European city, not that we're going to change their way of living and but a nice integration of the two, actually it can be fruitful.
It's funny because one of the awardees for the CLD award, she's a Belgian dancer. And when I think after she got it, she ended up sending me a WhatsApp, and she was like, Briana, I just want to say, like, it's so amazing to see the stuff that you've done. You're this American that moved to Belgium, and you created funds for Belgian dancers to do something new. And she was like, you're really doing this entrepreneurship thing. And she was like, it's just amazing how you really like, and she was like, there aren't that many Belgian dancers that do that. And it's true. Love me some Belgian dancers. love this country, but the mindset is very different in how dancers perceive their careers and what they're able to do. And really start to see themselves once again as entrepreneurs. And I use the word entrepreneur to kind of sum up the idea of taking ownership and moving forward. But just the idea of, yeah, I don't know, just approach is the word that comes to mind. The approach to one's career is different, which is very American, I guess, in the way that
it is. It is. I'm telling you, you're hitting, you are at the precipice, at the point where it has to happen. I'm just letting you know that right now. I mean, I've known this for a long time, but even the people that I came up with, they do not understand it still. It's like, do you understand that our lives, our livelihood as dancers depend on it, right? It really does. So as soon as Casey Hurd told me that you existed, I was like, all right, it's just, she's on. He knew.
Yeah, it's funny because Casey has made a great point that nowadays with how dance is moving forward is that people are starting to follow people as opposed to like organizations, especially with social media. Like you follow Misty Copeland or you follow the principal dancer of your other company. Yeah. So in thinking about individual talent, that's also the sense of like Misty Copeland is an entrepreneur. Like she has books. She has what, dolls? She has like brands of Fabletics. Like, I don't know. She's done that, but we don't think about it that way. Or we think, oh, she's Misty Copeland. She can do it because she's like Misty Copeland does. Like, no. On every level, there's a dancer. There's something that can make that impact because we're following people. And people like Misty Copeland can do it within their own context. Within their own situation. So.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Like, how's the French? Is it French that you're learning, or what are you learning over there?
I pretty much work in French and teach in French, so my French is actually pretty good. There's always something new to learn, as you can imagine. My Dutch is okay. I need to spend more time learning it, but because Brussels is technically French and Dutch, but most people speak French, I don't really have the opportunity to speak a lot of Dutch. So that kind of hinders my learning and progression. So it just takes a little bit more to make that happen. But pretty much I can function in French and English in the stuff that I do.
Oh, Briana, this is what you've done is quite amazing. I mean, I think I don't know if anybody's told you that already, but you know, to be able to have the mindset to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and then you actually do it. And we talked about this briefly. What are your friends and family? What do they think about all of these things that you're doing?
So me moving to a different country, my parents have always been really supportive. They were just like, oh, you want to move to Belgium? So they're always the type of person of the how and not the what. And I think I've really gotten that from them. My mom be like, all right, you want to do that? How you gonna do it? I have this for you. I can throw you a couple bones. Other than that, like, how you gonna make it happen? And my dad has always been the type of like, if you want to be the best coloring book person in the world, you do that. The idea that no matter what you do, just be really great at it. So my parents have been really supportive. For the longest, my family thought I lived in Germany because they had no idea where I moved to. So overall, my family's been very supportive, but when it comes to the type of work that I'm doing in dance, they don't really understand it, mostly because when you say that you're a dancer, people assume, oh, so you just like teach kids and you perform a little bit and like, that's all it is, pretty much. So if I were to really sit down and tell them what COD is about, they'd be like, huh, interesting. Or the idea that I'm calling myself a dance entrepreneur now, and they're like, so like you own a studio? No, it's beyond that. It's using dance at its seed and its root, and you're finding different ways to create impact just through the mere idea that I am a dancer and use movement to change lives with different audiences. So dance professionals or kids or older people or people that work for corporations. And that's how I kind of like think about my career. So they don't really I don't think they really understand or know, and that's fine, but they still support me in everything that I do, which is the most important part.
Well, yeah, I'm very happy that I met you because I did something similar, and I saw, I called myself an artist entrepreneur. Now, like in terms of the kind of money that an entrepreneur in business makes, it's a whole nother story. But there are possibilities even more so now after COVID or during COVID, because everyone had to stay inside. So I would not have been able to have this successful platform had it not been for COVID. And this was already in my mind, is just trying to figure out how I was going
Yes.
to do it, right? How I was going to
Yes.
do it. And you take advantage of the situation. And we worked with corporations as well, where people came and said, can you put together a dance piece, you know, for diversity and inclusion, right? If you look at the picture of me on LinkedIn, that picture is from a corporation that hired me for a diversity and inclusion event of like 300 plus people, outside, outdoors at the headquarters. So that only came because someone who was open-minded enough to say we're going to do it. It was still a controversial thing because they're like, what? They couldn't see what it was about. It was a little too concept heavy on the concept and less on like, okay, what are we getting out of this, right? But it did make an impact. And you beautifully, probably, you know, much better than I could say. You really did hit the nail on the head in terms of what a dance entrepreneur is supposed to do, at least from my perspective. Is there anything else you'd like to add, you know, about your experience and what you're up to, or?
My experience. Well, what I was going to actually just say in response to what you say is that for those that are tuning in, if they're not familiar with dance or whatever, is that dance is beyond what they might think. That the field of possibility of dance has not really been tapped into. It's been so much of learn choreography, perform, or teach it that people haven't really started to understand how we can really start to like parse through and find the possibilities. So I guess for those dancers that maybe are watching this, I encourage them to think about their impact and who they can affect, as well as, I don't know, reach out if there are any questions for me as well at createlivingfordancers.com. Yes, so what I was gonna say is, for those that are tuning in and are unfamiliar with dance in general, or the possibilities of dance, or those that might have questions about the type of work that I'm doing, feel free to contact me at createlivingfordancers.com. I believe that the field of possibility within dance is endless, and really starting to get in through it and parse through it, I think we'll discover some really new and amazing things that will take the field forward in amazing ways. And I'm thankful for having this conversation with you as well. So thank you so much for your platform that allows artists and creatives like me to just have these important conversations. So even though this conversation, you know, sits on YouTube, every time I say these words, I feel like something shifts. And that's just kind of how I think about my existence. So I always appreciate the moment to just like answer questions, especially because your questions were good, David.
Well, I mean, I've had a lot of time to think about it because, like I said, this has been on my mind since 1985, even before then, because I am a dancer by DNA, and in other words, in other ways as well. I mean, interdisciplinary artist, right? And I've always struggled with this. And the community that has an understanding of what needs I have is super small. So let's say, you know, when I would interact with choreographers and I'd be like, really? You know, it's like, like I'd have to work with them because they are actually doing the work, right? But then I'm like, you guys don't get beyond what's in the studio or what's on stage and how that could actually help us all. Yeah. And so that was the annoying thing for me, that, you know, I went to law school and business school really to do what it is that you're doing now, for artists. I think that's what it is. And now I'm doing with the platform, right? So it's like, oh, now I can do it, you know, but before I was still struggling. It was struggle. Like, nobody's listening to me. Like I had this perspective similar to you. People don't take it seriously because there's no perceived need for it. But you and I both know what is needed before they even really know, right, what they need, because you know what's coming.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much for your time and your you know, creating what you're creating for artists is fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we'll talk again soon. Like let's plan to do something in the future. Maybe we can do a you know, like a panel or, you know, as you say, the sky's the limit on this, right?
I would actually love to come to Basel. Have I been to Switzerland?
Yeah.
I had to have been to Switzerland at some point. I don't know, we'll get there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a guy here who's from the United States who went to Juilliard, who has a studio, not a studio, but it's a an art center. Armando Broswell. I don't know if you know him. He is on LinkedIn. He's on Facebook. I can link, you know, send you the link. He's doing a version of what you're doing, another version of what we do.
Check them out, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the time, and we will connect. Okay, soon. And I'll have the video up as soon as I can. I'm a little bit behind, but I will have it up for you.
Take your time, my friend. It'll happen when it's going to happen.
Yeah. All right. Have a great afternoon, and I will speak to you soon.
Yeah. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.